best is yet to come, and babe, won't it be fine?
You think you've seen the sun, but you ain't seen it shine.
Hello everyone, welcome once again to Ask the Treksperts. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Sarah.
Today we're going to start, hopefully, a new trend for Treksperts. We are going to do a season overview. We're going to be talking about Next Generation Season 1, and we have started going back and binge-watching Trek again. We thought it would be fun to watch everything all at once and knock them out in, a few weeks, month.
Yeah. And in order, which I've never done before.
Yeah, well, I guess kind of in order. I mean, we didn't start with TOS, but that's just because we've been watching a lot of TOS lately, so we decided to jump over to TNG. So I don't know exactly what order we're going to do this in. I mean, obviously we're going to do the whole series at once. So if we do more overview videos, and I think that we will, the next one we do, of course, will be TNG Season 2. But after that, I don't know if we'll go straight to DS9. Although one thing that might be interesting, I just thought of this, is it might be interesting actually when we get to the point that DS9 starts in TNG that we alternate.
Ooh. We'll have to talk about that.
Okay, all right, cool. Anyway, so today we're going to talk about Season 1, Next Generation. We're going to talk about how we feel about the season as a whole, now that we just finished it again. And keep in mind, of course, that most of these episodes are things that we've seen several times, but never have we sat down and watched it all in order. And TNG is a show I always watched all over the place. So anyway, we're going to give you our thoughts on just the season as a whole. So Sarah, why don't you start? Throw out a topic. We'll just start rolling and see what we can make happen in the length of a video.
Well, should we start with a good point or a bad point?
Start with a good point.
Okay. One thing that I found interesting going back to Season 1 is that, okay, I always thought Season 1 was horrible. Had really bad episodes and just was all over the place. And yes, there are horrible episodes in Season 1, but it's not nearly as unwatchable as I thought it would be. Where, it starts out with Farpoint, and there's some pretty bad episodes that follow, but it gets to a better place quicker than I expected. Where there are a few episodes in a row that you just groan to get through, but then after those are done, it just gets to a much better place much quicker. And it's not top-notch, because they still haven't quite found their footing, but you can't call it unwatchable, if you know what I mean. And I always just thought it was, all of it. With the exception of Conspiracy, I always liked that one. How about you? What do you think?
Well, I still kind of see it as mostly unwatchable. I'm with you. I felt like I had a better experience with it here than I had before. Here's where I'm going to come down on it. I think that as a season, it holds together a whole lot better than the episodes do individually.
Yes.
I think that if you're watching if you're jumping around, you're watching some 3, some 5, some 6, even some 2, and then you throw in a couple 1s. Mm-hmm. I mean, comparatively, yeah, it's unwatchable.
Yeah.
I think that when you're watching it in order, there are places where you can kind of feel, okay, they're getting there. Uh-huh. You know what I mean? It never gels. It never entirely gels, but I wouldn't say, you kept saying it gets to a better place. I don't think so. I think that there are diamonds in the rough. I think that there are episodes here and there that are more watchable than the others, but I mean, there's nothing in Season 1 that compares to anything in 4. For instance, if that makes any sense. I may eat my words later when we go back and watch 4 in its entirety, but you see what I'm saying? It never gels like 3 eventually does. I mean when you get into 3, a few episodes in, all of a sudden it gels and suddenly the show has a feel. Season 1 never has a consistent feel, and that's the problem.
I think part of the problem is that they just haven't figured out their characters yet.
Well, I think part of the problem is that they haven't gotten completely out of TOS yet.
I think that's another.
But you're absolutely right. That's part of the thing is they don't know exactly who these characters are, and part of it is these characters don't fit in TOS.
No,
but they still are kind of holding on to pieces of TOS.
They're trying to take the stories from the stories from the TOS era.
Certainly the story types.
The story types, but put an 80s spin on them.
Mm-hmm.
And man, that doesn't work.
It doesn't, because the feel of 60s television and 80s television. I mean, if you really know your TV, I mean, like apples and oranges. Yeah. They feel very, very different.
It just feels so weird and so off. And I think
sure.
they needed to have a couple seasons behind them and figure out, hey, it's not really working like
Well,
it should. Let's change the show a little bit and get away from where we were.
Even in just that 20-year period, I think that what people found to be entertaining to watch on television had kind of shifted. And just, I mean, I don't want to say that the 60s and the 80s were that crazy different, but I'm just saying that even sensibilities were a bit different.
And they're also trying to, in the 60s, you focused on the three characters, Kirk, Spock, McCoy.
Right.
And then now in Next Generation, they're focusing on an entire ensemble
They
cast.
want it to be an ensemble show. Exactly.
And it's just kind of different.
Part of the weird thing about season 1, and again, if you're a big Trek fan like we are, it's impossible not to compare it to the rest of it. So one of the things that's jarring, if you're used to, and by the way, I haven't seen the episodes of season 1 nearly as many times as I have a lot of the other seasons.
Fair enough.
When I sit down to just throw in a disc and watch an episode, I rarely pull one from season 1. So one of the things that I find jarring is it's an ensemble show. But there are a lot of characters that are major characters that don't get any screen time, and that certainly don't get anything interesting to do. Geordi is just the blind guy who drives the ship, and it's really glaring. How unfun he is compared to what he gets to do later.
I'm really glad that they moved him to engineering in season 2. They gave him more to do, and it really felt weird and out of place that there was no real chief engineer.
And they kept switching around, and I was always confounded by that.
Yeah.
That Roddenberry or anyone else didn't immediately create a chief engineer, because they did with TOS.
I know.
It's so
weird.
weird.
They use Scott all the time in TOS. I mean, stuff's going to go wrong with the ship, and you're going to want to know who's the person fixing it.
I mean, even at the beginning of TOS, when we had that different doctor in Where No Man Has Gone Before, it didn't seem like they were going to have rotating doctors. It seemed like they just decided that guy didn't fit.
Yeah.
I mean, those are major sections that you figure you need somebody in. Yeah. But Geordi and then Worf.
Yeah, he's just what does he even do for a season?
It's weird because I mean, Tasha Yar is the chief of security.
Yeah.
And of course that's a character that's never fleshed out at all. But I mean, she at least has a position. And what does he do? Well, actually he doesn't. He just stands next to Yar.
Yeah.
Does he even have a station?
Well, isn't it right behind her on one of those panels?
He's turned around sometimes, and then he comes in. When he talks to Picard, he just turns around and he stands next to Yar.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure. I'm assuming he's part of security.
Yeah, but what does he do?
I don't know. And why is he on the bridge?
Yeah. When Yar dies, nobody replaces Worf.
No, exactly. Nobody's in that ever. It's like nobody. Yeah. We didn't need anybody in that position. Yeah. So I really kind of wonder about that, because it seems very much like, it seems like we weren't so concerned in season 1 with who these characters were as we were with what statements do we want to make.
Yes.
And I think that's a major point we ought to throw out, don't you think? Where Roddenberry simply liked the idea of the blind man drives the ship. Never mind who he is and what he's about. Just simply, isn't it a neat, fun irony in our utopian future that we can have the blind man driving the ship? Well, yeah, sure. But it ain't carrying that character for 26 episodes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then same thing with Worf. We're making a grand stand. Remember, this is before Star Trek 6. This is before we had already had the Khitomer Peace Accords. And so for any TOS fans watching TNG at the beginning, it's jarring to see a Klingon on the bridge, and he's making a statement with that. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's awesome. It's a great idea. You're not wrong. That's not carrying that character.
Yeah, and the one thing that I really thought was a bad decision initially, and I may get some flack for this, but Wesley Crusher just doesn't work starting season 1.
I don't think so either.
I think the problem with him is that, okay, they say he's a kid. They say he's a kid genius. How old is he? That's my big question. How old is he? He looks like he's 15, 16 years old. Right. They treat him like he's 10.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't talk to a 15, 16-year-old like that, and you don't generally make such a big deal out of him knowing the functions in the bridge of a starship when he's 15. But, I don't know, it just never worked for me.
I absolutely agree with you 100%. My question to you is, do you think they simply shouldn't have dealt with that because it's corny or it's goofy, or do you think that they simply should have made the actor younger?
See, I actually think they just should have made the actor younger.
Do you think if they'd gotten the right actor, it wouldn't have come off as corny?
Yes, I really do.
Do you think it would have been similar to for our comic fans? Do you think it would have been maybe somewhat similar to, say, having Tim Drake as Robin?
Sure. I think if they had gotten the right actor and if they had actually written him well, and I think that he would have been written better if he had been younger. Sort of like Naomi Wildman. I mean, nobody complains about Naomi Wildman in Voyager.
And what is she, 10,
she's
9?
Awesome. Yeah.
Or, no, she's younger. She's like 8. Yeah.
I mean, she's the captain's assistant, and I mean, we all go along with it.
Actually, I'm sorry, she's like 3, but I guess that she ages faster because she's Parkatarian. But
she looks like she's 8 or 9.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, but Wesley, he looks
you're
like
absolutely right about that.
I mean, he goes in and he takes the Starfleet entrance exam, but he looks like he should be taking the Starfleet entrance exam.
That's exactly
right. So what's the big deal?
And Wesley Crusher makes a couple other things glaring as well. One of them is, and I'm going to use one of the points that you threw out a lot, so go ahead and build on this. But one of them is the size of the starship, because Wesley Crusher, they decide to make an acting ensign, and part of that is bogus because it seems to me like it's pretty much just Picard pandering to Crusher, and I don't like that. But it's just like, okay. He's do we need an acting ensign? Like, we don't have enough people on board already?
Yeah, it's 1,000...
There's 1,000 people on the ship, and we don't see anybody but bridge crew.
Yeah, so the only people who are Starfleet are bridge crew? Really? I don't think
and
so.
That's not true.
No, that's certainly not the case.
It's
but
certainly...
This ship seems a lot smaller than it is.
As big as it's supposed to be, we don't see nearly enough extras. Especially compared to TLS. What was that, like 400 crew or something?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you saw people in the corridors all the time. I mean, they packed people in those corridors.
Yeah.
They had a bigger complement than that ship could
and every
hold.
time you went down to a planet, you had a couple of red shirts, or occasionally you'd have people extras on the bridge. I mean, it felt like a crew complement of 417 or 413, whatever.
Yeah.
And in Next Generation, it's just. Okay, it's the bridge crew, and anytime there's a menial job that needs to be done, I guess we have to send Riker. Because he's the only one who could possibly make sure it gets done. I mean... The other thing, and I agree with this, I don't know if you will, but one of the popular opinions is that Wesley Crusher and simply having children on board the Enterprise is part of what made Picard so stolid for season, and why he just comes off as kind of a grumpy old man. Yeah, I think the problem is that they made part of his character he doesn't like children.
Yeah, that's just built into his...
It's just built into his character. So, I mean, what kind of person...
Much like Pulaski is racist in
season
2
against
the androids.
Doesn't like children. I mean, is he Ebenezer Scrooge? I mean, who do you know who just says, I can't stand to be around children?
Yeah.
It's not too many people. And in this utopian future, it's just
kind of
out of place. You can see somebody...
I could see it, but I don't think that they play it right.
Yeah. I mean, I could see somebody not having patience. He's like, I have families aboard, but there are their families who should stay separate from the official business.
Well, this being apparently maybe one of the first starships, they make a big deal out of... They make as big a deal out of having family on Starship as they make about the holodeck.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder why Starfleet picked him.
Yeah.
Why is he driving the ship? It's I don't know. It's we are nearly out of time. Do you have a lot more to talk about?
Probably. I mean, we could wrap it. I mean, we could talk about Riker, how he compares to later seasons, but
yeah,
I mean,
I think we've covered quite a bit of a gambit.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, why don't we? I'm good too. Why don't we throw out a couple of favorite episodes from this season?
Okay. Conspiracy. That's easy for me.
I like Conspiracy.
Always did.
I'll tell you, I like Hide and Q better than I remembered liking it.
Yeah. And believe it or not, I liked When the Bow Breaks.
I remembered hating that, and I liked it a lot better this time around. Yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
So, we'll figure a children episode.
What do you think of Arsenal of Freedom?
It was
passable.
It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
But I thought they could have done more with it. I'm not sure what.
I like the Neutral Zone. I like the last episode of the season. It's goofy, but I like it.
The 3 extra passengers were kind of goofy, but it was still a fun episode.
It's a decent introduction to the Romulans in that series. Yeah. It's all right. Well, what do you think about Season 1 TNG? Of course, like we said, there's lots of other stuff that we could have covered, so why don't you help us out and cover a few things there in the comments as well. And if there's anything you'd like us to talk about in a future episode, be sure to ask us a question for Ask the Treksperts, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Sarah.
See you next time.